It is July 26th at 6:02 p.m. and this is a public meeting of the Portland Committee on Community Engaged Policing. And we can get started with some introductions with who is here, and hopefully we will be joined by a few more who trickle in. Let's start with our PCCEP members for tonight, and then I'll let our facilitators take over from here. Thank you.
I can start, although you can't see me. My name is Tia Palafox. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a co-chair of the Community Engagement Subcommittee and been a member of PCCEP since 2021. Hopefully my video will start working in a few minutes. Thank you. And I see Nathan. Do you want to go next?
Sure, thanks, Tia. Hi, everyone. Nathan Castle, he, him pronouns, PCCEP member. And I'll call on Byron.
Good evening, everyone. Byron Vaughn, PCCEP member since 2021, Settlement and Policy Subcommittee member as well. And that's it. That's from Frida. Am I looking at this wrong?
You are not. That's it for right now.
No,
Teresa.
We also have Joseph here.
Oh, is Joseph here?
Okay, Joseph.
I'm sorry,
Hi,
Joseph.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Let me turn on my camera. Oh, hi. Yeah, Joseph Torres. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Joseph. Any other PCCEP members that might have just joined us? All right. I'll do a quick intro of the facilitators. I am Teresa, and I am one of the two facilitators that's going to help with today's meeting. And I'll let Afrida introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Afrida, pronouns she, her, and I am co-facilitating with Teresa.
Great, thank you. Let's have our city folks introduce themselves. Dory, you want to start?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Dory Grabinski, PCCEP project manager. Thank you for joining us. I'll pass it to, oh, sorry, Stephanie, go ahead.
I was just going to jump in there. Hi, everybody. Stephanie Howard, and I work in the mayor's office and use she, her pronouns.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. Other city staff?
Hi, this is Avi Klepper. I'm PCCEP staff.
Thank you, Avi. All right. Any other folks from the city?
Yes.
Or staff?
Hi, I'm Melanie Payne. I use the pronoun she, her, and I work for BOEC 911.
Great, thank you, Melanie. Any members of the DOJ or PPB? Seeing none, okay, then we'll move on. That's all the intro we're gonna do. Next slide. Just gonna do a quick community agreements. Listen actively and respectfully, share airtime, be present and open to new information and perspectives, assume positive intent, respect each other, respect the group, speak your own truth, communicate directly, honestly, and respectfully, ask questions to clarify, call out biases, and be okay with ambiguity. Next slide, please. And then an overview of what we'll be covering today. So we'll start with updates, and then we'll go into next steps to engage with the PSR issue. Then we'll have a 10-minute break, and then we'll go into status conference hearing presentation. And then we're gonna open it up to the public. Just in case we have a brief first section, we might go into the next section and then go into break. So we might have a little bit of flexibility there. Thank you, everyone. And we'll go into updates, or the next slide, please.
All right, so I will take this one. So we just want to keep everyone informed about some important dates coming up. As some of you may know, PCCEP appears at all of the status conference hearings under the DOJ settlement agreement, and we'll talk a little bit more about what those are later in the meeting if you're unfamiliar. But the next status conference hearing date is August 14th. And PCCEP will be preparing and presenting a statement for that hearing to present to the court and Judge Simon. So that's part of what we'll be doing tonight, is talking about what the committee and the community would like to see reflected in that statement. And we'll also be deciding who will present it to the court. And then just a few days after that, on August 16th, PCCEP will be holding a public meeting with Mayor Wheeler. So this will be a really great opportunity for the committee and the public to come and speak with the mayor and talk about some of what we've been doing and what we'd like to see moving forward. You can go back. It's okay. And that meeting will be in person at the Portland building. We will be in touch with more details about that meeting as we confirm them. And the next slide. So also really important news, we are recruiting for PCCEP. I think the government jobs posting just went live today. I will put that in the chat. You can also find the application on our website. So if you're interested in some of the work that PCCEP has been doing, if you think you know someone who might be interested, please circulate this application or fill it out. We would love to hear from you. You can also get in touch with me with any questions about the work, the application. I'm sure any of our current members would also be happy to talk with you about it. So yeah, some exciting news there. Oh, great. And it looks like our co-chair Celeste just joined us. Perfect timing. So now, any questions about any of those updates before we move on? Okay, so now Celeste is gonna share with us a little bit about what the committee has been discussing coming off of our meeting last week with the Community Engagement Subcommittee, where we met with the PSR program manager and the interim fire chief, kind of learning more about the PSR situation. And so now PCCEP is thinking about how to move forward to engage with this issue and reflect some of the concerns of the public. So I will hand it over to Celeste for the next slide to talk about the next steps that PCCEP is considering.
Okay, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, okay. So apologies ahead of time. I may have some drop off. I'm actually just outside of Salt Lake City here. So forgiveness, please. So as you can see from our slides, we have invited Commissioner Gonzalez as the commissioner in charge of Project Portland Street Response to share his perspective and information and ideas and just his idea of what we should be doing. We're waiting to hear from him, and we will make sure that everyone is aware of the meeting date when we do have available. We are currently working on a draft, and that's based on all of the information that you gave us at the last meeting. So if you were not able to get your information in, please take advantage of our email address, and you can find it at the PCCEP website. And then we're going to present our recommendation to the public, as we usually do in the town hall. And that's another chance for feedback. Though I recommend that you look at, if you can, video, or at least follow the notes so that you can be better prepared and feel as though you are informed and able to give some important insight and contributions. And then finalize, finally, we're gonna finalize our recommendation and submit it to Mayor Wheeler. And we may request an opportunity to also present this to City Council. And then I think that pretty much covers everything that we have to date on that.
Yeah, so at this point, thank you, Co-Chair Celeste. At this point, we're going to go ahead and open the floor for discussion. Any questions or comments around these next steps? We're now making that available with PCCEP members. Please move to the front or speak first, so that, and then any community members may chime in. Go ahead, Tia.
I'm wondering what the format will look like when Commissioner Wallace is there. I feel like that could be a heated discussion. Facilitators will be there, and then what will that look like? Will we be asking him all the questions, or will he be bringing a presentation?
I can speak to that, Tia. And maybe it's worth mentioning to the public as well that we now have facilitation in place for all PCCEP meetings, which is a really wonderful transition for us. So that would be a given for any sort of meeting or event that we would do. And then as far as the format, I think that would be, sort of a to be determined kind of thing. We have invited their staff, but we have not, it has not been confirmed or scheduled at this point. So I think once we got that confirmation, then we could discuss as a committee what we would like that to look like, what would be most productive and informative for the group. But facilitation, absolutely, for everything moving forward.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dory. Thank you, Tia, for that question. Byron?
Thank you, Frida. And so just so I understand you correctly, Dory, when we do come back and speak on what we want, is we're going to find out if each member can ask the mayor questions, things like that, or we're going to have a chance to say something, or is that where we're going to find all that out, just to make sure I'm following you correctly?
So in the meeting that PCCEP is hosting with the mayor. So, and the question, could you say that again for me, Byron?
I was just thinking, like, when we discuss what we're going to talk about with the mayor, are we going to involve, or is that going to be talked about as well as what the PCCEP members can say, or are each PCCEP member going to have a chance to speak to the mayor? Is that what we're going to be doing, all that, just to make sure I followed you correctly? That's all.
Celeste, did you have a response to that, or did you have a different question?
Well, what I wanted to encourage my colleagues to do is take a little time ahead of time before we have the meeting and go through it and remember, reformulate, write down whatever your questions that you have so we can be concise and on point. So let's assume that we're going to have a chance to ask him questions and be prepared ahead of time. Oh, that's it. I muted myself.
Yeah, I think I share that understanding, Byron. I think that is the intention of the meeting. Yes, and then also I think PCCEP will collaborate together in advance to make sure you have time to think about your interests and concerns together as a group, and prepare that way too. Yeah.
Are there any other PCCEP members who have questions or comments that they'd like to add? All right. Hi, Pastor Robin.
Hello, everyone. Sorry for being late. I'm not in the city. I did want to acknowledge that I'm here. I apologize for being late because I'm running from one place to another. The only comment that I would say is that what is so wonderful about our opportunity, and I'm on the latter part, hopefully that I'm engaging it correctly, but I think I follow the spirit of the question and the comments, Celeste. Hi, Celeste, by the way, and thank you for my apologies for being late. Is that we are the spirit of one in the voices of what we speak. And in the collective of what we are, as she has said, is that it is very important for all of us to be able to have the thought that when we stand before, we speak just like we do for the community, for the same questions that they may have, so that when it's there, that's the comment that I just wanted to leave.
Yeah, thank you for that, Pastor Robin. Great point. Are there any community members who'd like to ask a question or comment at this time around this potential plan?
Okay, will we be sending out a invitation from our outreach list, or should we all be inviting our community or circle?
Great
How will we
question.
do outreach?
I think that's a great question for the community engagement subcommittee, of which you are a part,
Yes.
obviously, Tia. But
Okay.
yeah, I think that is also to be determined, and it's worth saying, the way I read this potential plan is sort of, there is time and space to work this out. So as you know, the community engagement subcommittee maybe plans the event for the town hall, or community engagement event portion. Those are questions that have yet to be answered in my mind.
Okay. Perfect.
Any other questions or comments about these next steps? Right. Please don't hesitate to come off mute or raise your hand if you have any questions. If there's none, I'm going to turn it back over to Teresa.
Great, thank you, Afrida. If we can go to the next slide, please, that would be great. Thank you. And seeing that we can go into the next portion of our meeting, the status conference hearing statement. Pastor Weisner, do you want to go over what that is to get us kind of started on this work?
I heard Weisner. I was just getting out of an network.
I think Celeste might have had this slide too, because we knew that Pastor Weisner was going to be in transit a little bit.
Okay, great.
No worries. So the status hearing conference at our last one, we presented the work we've been doing since reconstituting, reformulating, and got everyone caught up on where we are. On this one, we want to be a little bit proactive, and we want to focus on what is still needed or wanted by both the PCCEP members and the public with regard to our activities. So this is not just this is what we've done in celebration. This is things like, what should we be doing with regard to our recommendations? How should we make sure that they are getting the due attention? Do we need to tweak any of them to keep them relevant? Do we need to make sure that all of them that have been put forward have been responded to in a a relevant and substantial fashion. The next thing is to work on relationships and with the police bureau and other partners to make sure that we are, again, meeting the requirements of the settlement agreement. And then we're going to look at ways to expand our compliance reports, raise concerns that we've had amongst ourselves and with public to the judge. And then if there's any progress that's been made, make sure we mention that. And as you can see from the slide, the regular partners are going to be there. And we do encourage community members, if they have the opportunity, to attend, either in person or virtual.
Thank you so much, Co-Chair Celeste, by providing us this quick overview. We'll open it up to the floor for discussion and ask that our PCCEP members, if there's any comment, question that you want to bring up, that would be great. Co-Chair Celeste, did you also want to go through this other slide?
Sure. So everyone can read this, but I just want to reiterate, repeat that our whole goal is to make sure that we are meeting the requirements of the settlement agreement, and especially elevating the voices of the community and working actively to strengthen the relationships with the police bureau and the community. That is foremost the mission of PCCEP, to improve the outreach, the connections, the community input, so that we can create a shared vision of public and community safety with the police. And then we also want to make sure that if we are falling down or any of our partners are falling down, that we raise the relevant concerns and address those deficiencies and meet those issues. So one of the things that let me do a quick back step. At the last meeting, I had the honor and privilege of presenting to Judge Simon, and it was a feather in our cap that we actually had a report and submitted a written report. So we do want to do that again. And one of the things we want to do is get input from the community as to what we need to address in our statement. We know what we're doing, but we want to hear any ideas you have that either are relevant to what we're doing or expanding on our actions as related to the settlement. So see that question on there? What should PCCEP include in our statement? That's your opportunity to shape whatever presentation we give to Judge Simon.
And if I could add to that, so I think Celeste has, I think I said this, has alluded to this, but what PCCEP can do in this report to the court is not only talk about PCCEP's compliance and progress with the settlement agreement as it relates to PCCEP, but also perhaps more consequentially talk about the city's progress with the settlement and PPB's progress with the settlement, because
yes,
what PCCEP is sort of that sort of institutionalized community voice piece in the settlement agreement. So we have the monitor, we have the DOJ, we have the city all providing their assessments of how this thing is going. And PCCEP gets to come in and say, we've heard what you all have said and we've read your reports. This is sort of how the community feels that this whole project is going. And so what we want to talk about with you all tonight is to kind of get some input about what this statement should reflect. How does the community feel at this moment in time about how this settlement agreement is progressing? So again, that can relate to actions the city has taken, specific things related to PPB, anything like that. What should we include? that's sort of what's up for discussion at this moment.
Great, thank you so much, Dory, for providing that clarification. So I'll go ahead and open it up to folks from the PCCEP committee to share your thoughts. Please raise your hand and let me know that you want to speak, and then we'll go to the public.
Don't be shy.
We'll take
I
a
mean,
quick.
even if you're not sure, even if you're not sure if it's relevant, it's still valuable for you to ask questions or give us your thoughts. Because this is a learning progress for many of our community members, and we want you to feel safe to share your concerns or what you think needs to be done. If it turns out that's not quite part of the mission of PCCEP, that's okay. Because again, this is a learning opportunity.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Co-Chair Celeste. I see that we have a member of the public who has their hand up, but I do want to give space for our PCCEP members. And I want to reiterate and underscore what Co-Chair Celeste said. Even if you need clarification at this point, because we do have a lot of new PCCEP members, I think that it's okay to ask clarification questions as well. So I see Tia's hand up, and go ahead, Tia.
Okay, I don't see Ashley here. Is Ashley here tonight?
Ashley is out of town.
Okay. Well, I do not want to speak for her, but I know she wrote a very detailed letter. And I'm wondering if that will be part of the response that included information about shot spotter.
Could you speak on that, Tia? Because I think Ashley actually asked if someone would bring that up tonight.
Oh man, I'm trying so hard to remember visually the letter. Okay, I'm trying.
It's okay. I can paraphrase or ask someone else to. I'm putting you on the spot.
I know. I remember the concerns about how response time and maybe the slow response time to PCCEP after we gave a recommendation to the mayor about shot spotter, and then which was to not go with it, and then some conflict conversation around FitCog and some of the negative implications that came from a response via a letter from the mayor. And it seemed like there was conflict around the response and a slow time, and that we wanted to ask why the response came the way it did. And I'm not sure if I'm saying that right.
I think you've reflected that well. It was not, I think the response was received in a timely manner, but she had reflected concerns about the content and manner of response to those recommendations, more or less. So yeah, that was something raised for sure.
Okay.
If I may, I know one of the things that we've discussed as a committee is bringing to Judge Simon a request for clarification on what constitutes an adequate response and what is the appropriate format for response, so that we can have some clarity. And if by some chance we are not submitting it in a proper format, we can fix our end of the dynamic. So I know that's one thing we have talked about here, and I do expect we'll be bringing that to Judge Simon as well as to the mayor.
Okay, yes. I have my cell phone open looking for the letter if you want me to do a little bit better.
Well, it sounds like you captured the gist
Okay.
from what I heard from Dory. So thank you so much for doing that. That was really helpful for a lot of folks. Did you want to add to that, Tia, or did you have any additional comments?
No, I don't really.
Okay, well, thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you. I was just thinking of Ashley's hard work on
Yeah,
her recommendations.
yeah. This is a great way to honor her absence and bringing up an issue that's important. Thank you. It looks like we have Byron. Go ahead, Byron.
I forgot. I went stone cold blank. Oh my gosh. Go ahead, Barb. Let her go next.
That happens. Yeah, we'll go ahead, Barb, and then we'll come back to Byron as he thinks about his question.
Okay, trying to get to the right place. I'd like to see you guys talk about the change in the COCO and the court monitor situation. I'll have other thoughts, but that's my first one for you.
Barb, do you want to expand on that?
Barb, yes, that's just what I was going to ask. Thank you.
Can't y'all read my mind, darn it, by now? Well, one, I don't know if Dennis is going to be there, but since he's retiring, it seems to me like it might make sense if you guys have anything nice to say to the COCO before the first COCO before they go and become the second COCO. And then also reiterating, PCCEP's position or the community's position on getting the court monitor in place. So the DOJ isn't in the situation that they're in with being both the monitor and the plaintiff. Does that make sense? And I don't know if Stephanie wants to say anything helpful about explaining that.
Thank you,
but
Barb.
she doesn't have to.
Thank you, Barb. Thank you for sharing that. Again, if any of the PCCEP members need any clarification, please feel free to raise your hand about anything that Barb has said or anything that Co-Chair Celeste has said. Appreciate that. Now we're going to go back to Byron. Go ahead, Byron.
Thank you, Teresa. I posed this question to Dory, Pastor Weisner, Celeste. And tell me if I'm thinking too far ahead. Should we also mention to Judge Simon who's going to be next in charge, or like who's going to be next in line that we're going to might have to be working with in the future? Maybe starting to get maybe getting a demographic of that. Is that important? Is that too soon to be speaking of? And just let him know that we're definitely going to need that cooperation. And I think, and maybe in some instance, knowing who we're going to be dealing with later on down the road can help us prepare us and who we're dealing with in so many ways. That was it, Teresa.
Thank you, Byron. Dory, did you want to respond or have a follow-up question?
My question, when you say in charge, Byron, what are you referring to?
I would use the wrong word, not in charge, just next mayor, the next commissioners, because there's going to be musical chairs as we move along with this. And it could be important, it could not be important at this time. It could be not important at all. So
what I hear you saying is, how to carry, so maybe as it relates to PCCEP, maybe across the settlement, how to carry momentum and progress across, political change and like, yeah, I hear you for sure. I think that's a very good thought, actually.
Yeah, and I can.
You know, I don't think it's too early to ask that, but
Mhm.
I think one of the things, again, when we do our statement and report for the status hearing, it's a chance then to bring our concerns about how things have been done, what hasn't been done, what needs to be done. And I think that sets the stage for whoever is coming in. It lets them, it kind of notifies everybody. This is what work still needs to be done, or this is how we need to improve it. So, you know, I don't think you're thinking too far ahead, Byron. I think you're right on.
Thank you, Co-Chair Celeste. We'll go next to Nathan.
Thank you. I've got a sort of a list of things that I've just been brainstorming. You know, I think I'll just sort of run through the list. I think excuse me, I think PCCEP should address the role of PSR in the public safety system. And, you know, I think it traditionally hasn't been considered part of the settlement agreement, but I think given the role in reducing use of force against people in mental health crisis, that should be, you know, we should be held to that and expect to maintain that as a city. And I think PCCEP should advocate for that being a long-term requirement. In the past, I know there have been some concerns about PCCEP's staffing support from the city. You know, that's improved a lot over the last year, and I think we should acknowledge the improvements that have happened. The other thing that I think we should, you know, consider remarking on is the non-police responses to gun violence and some of the alternative responses. I'm thinking about the credible messengers, the community-based organizations, Project Ceasefire, and the various other efforts that are, you know, not the traditional stops-based policing. I think that's something that our community called for, especially after 2020. And I think the city probably deserves to be recognized for the good work in that area, especially as it results in, or hopefully is going to result in both reduced victimization of Portlanders, but also not at the cost of discriminatory stops or use of force. The other thing that I think should be on our radar, and maybe PCCEP wants to consider addressing, is the COCOL 2023 Q1 draft report is calling for PPB to recreate a riot control team, or whatever they're calling it. It goes by many names. It used to be called Rapid Response Team. Right now, that's just a hypothetical, but if the city were to pursue that, I think maybe PCCEP should be asking for a higher level of involvement in that process, especially because crowd control has been such a hot topic, and obviously, I think led to some of the renegotiation of the settlement agreements and the additional remedies that were added. Training Advisory Council, I promise I'm going to get through my list very soon.
You're doing good.
Only 3 or 4 more items. Training Advisory Council recently passed a resolution calling on City Council and the Police Bureau to implement contact surveys. COCOL is calling for contact surveys. That was called out in the recent draft report as well. I think PCCEP members are broadly supportive, and I don't know if it's worth including that as a blurb in our statement as we work towards a formal recommendation to the mayor, assuming we choose to pursue that. The other thing I want to call out is the PPB has been doing the precinct meetings, the annual meetings for the report. I believe, I want to say it was North Precinct has their meeting up on YouTube already, because that already happened. There are a few more meetings happening this week. I think it'd be a good idea for PCCEP members to at least watch or maybe consider attending one of those meetings, maybe for the precinct that they're in. But I know PCCEP has been concerned about the timelines for that, and we should consider acknowledging the fact that those meetings have been happening on schedule in the way we want them to. Finally, and I don't know, we may want to think about this as a group before we dive in, but I know I've been particularly alarmed by some of the impacts of, I don't want to say crime, but ultimately they are, I think, could be characterized as crime, but things like street takeovers, street racing. We're seeing a lot of people, maybe lots the wrong characterization, more than zero, it should be zero, but we're seeing people who are being, run down while they're waiting for the bus. We're seeing people dying in accidents. We're seeing people, essentially paying the price for a lot of the disorder that's been happening. And, at some point, I don't know if it makes sense for PCCEP to consider this, but there's use of force and violence against people caused by police, and then there's violence and force that arises as a lack of effective public safety, and ultimately, I think I perceive a call from the community for greater intervention in some cases. So that should be on our radar. And then I actually have two more items, but I'm going to pause because I feel like I've been talking for too long.
Thank you, Nathan. I think it's all of the thought that you put into developing these questions are really invaluable, and certainly they're going to be part of the topics that the folks who are drafting the statement will take into consideration. How about this? We go to Pastor Robin, and they would come back to you to finish out your other questions. Would you like to do that? Or you have the space to continue?
I say pass it on.
Okay, great. Thank you. Go ahead, Pastor Robin. Pastor Robin might have some technical difficulties.
Oh, no, I just didn't put my hand down. I do apologize.
Okay, go ahead.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
I said, go ahead. You had your hand up. Did you have any additions, or do you have a question?
Well, I did have my hand up and I was trying to put it down, but I just want to concur with what I heard from Nathan. And then if I add to what the question that Byron had raised, as well as what Celeste has added to that, my question would be, I've heard concerns since I've been on board of how that the new COCO will be coming in, came and presented in the PCCEP's meetings. And from what I kind of am not very familiar with, so if Stephanie or Dory can help me with the thinking, if I understand this right, and I might be wrong, but they were contracted to have their town halls, and but they have been using some of the space of the PCCEP. And I'm wondering, is this what I heard, like the question Byron and Celeste had talked about in working through ground rules? Is this an opportunity for us to be able to also establish that kind of agreement?
Dory, did you want to respond to that?
Is Sarah here? Sarah?
I am here. This is Sarah Ames, Deputy City Attorney, she, her pronouns. Can you again remind me of the question exactly, whether there's an opportunity to rewrite the ground rules as far as PCCEP hosting the COCO town halls?
I think that is the question I heard.
Because I'm having technical difficulties, I just want to concur with Dory, and yes, because I'm being spotted here and there. Could you kind of help me with that thought? I think it's been discussed before.
Yeah, that's the question. No, I think you explained it clearly, Pastor Weisner. That is the question that I heard. Yeah.
I think I could explore that, and I could check in with the upcoming COCL. I don't want to put Amy Ruiz, who is a member of the upcoming COCL's team as well, on the spot right now. My understanding is that the settlement agreement requires the COCL to have these town halls, and that they have traditionally and consistently been held as part of a PCCEP meeting, because PCCEP is also created by the settlement agreement and is the forum for these kinds of community policing conversations to be carried out. But if there is interest in PCCEP in not hosting them, we could certainly discuss that with the new COCL and try to figure out if there's an alternate way to make that happen.
Thank you,
I
Sarah.
think thank you, Sarah, very much so, is I'm just trying to get caught up with some of the thinking of how, and I don't want to speak and co-chair Celeste, maybe you can help me with this, because you've been here for a while, but I don't want to alienate what we have done if it's meaningful, but if it's also more to learn about how this process works when the agreement requires them to have town halls and sort of say their own town halls, and PCCEP, because we have such a large audience, they just kind of use that as it. So I'm just trying to get more of the understanding, as well as if this is an opportunity to make sure that we have an opportunity to create an agreement in the same question I think Byron and others have said for working with this new group.
Well, I do have my hand up for something different, but I'll jump in and answer it. I know it's confusing, and it also may seem as though we're being co-opted, but actually we are required to have these meetings with the COCL. And so they are not usurping our time. They're not piggybacking or, taking advantage of our attendance. It is a partnership that is mandated and stated in, and Stephanie had it posted. Yes, that is a part of the settlement agreement. And I know there seems to be some confusion, and there seems on occasion there's been some concerns that they are not utilizing our time well. And I'm not sure how we could improve upon that outside of maybe having the new team make sure they have this information out to us and the public well in advance of these meetings. Because one of the things that happens is that people don't feel that they're adequately prepared. They don't have enough time to read the information and formulate meaningful, substantive questions. And so we feel like we're being rushed through this, and that there's only a surface acknowledgement that we may have issues or concerns with some of the information that's being presented, or that we don't have enough time to sit down and work together with the COCL team to actually come up with some ways to improve how they are presenting information and how we can be a partner with them. So I think maybe that's one of the things we really should bring to Judge Simon, and maybe work also with Jared Hager to figure out where are the improvements, how can we do this? Because I do understand that people are confused and maybe anxious, that it seems as though they're wasting their time, but no, it is actually a requirement of PCCEP to have these meetings.
So Celeste, I just want to bring together yours and Pastor Weisner's comments by reading the language of the settlement agreement. What it says is the COCL and the city, in consultation with the PCCEP, ... basically shall have these town halls. That is the language. And so I think you both are saying similar things, and that is the language itself, just to sort of bring those together. So I think I understand the confusion that exists between these two comments. That's all I had to add.
So maybe Sarah, the and consultant, is that language too different, or is that and with? I'm not sure of that and piece in that language.
It's the COPL and the city, in consultation with the PCCEP, shall ensure that the time and location is well publicized and all of that. That doesn't exactly say that you have to be the host, that you are, it will take place in one of your meetings. I hear a couple different themes here.
Okay.
One is some dissatisfaction being co-opted into doing these. And I'd like to, I was just trying to call up the PCCEP plan to see if there's additional information about hosting the COPL town halls, which I haven't memorized it, but the settlement agreement itself, it doesn't say that you have to host them. But I hear that is one frustration, but I think the underlying frustration is what Chair Celeste was talking about as well, is how can we make these a more productive exchange, not just a, we are doing this because we have to, and here we are, and have it be more of an informed dialogue where PCCEP and community members have more opportunity. Now, there's some things about timing, both the timing of your meetings, the timing of the release of the report, that could get fine-tuned a little bit. They're very long reports. And so, there could be some kind of work that we could do, bringing the COPL and PCCEP leadership or a committee together to talk about whether there's different ways to hold these town halls and to highlight particular information, or to respond more to PCCEP members' interests and particular concerns of that quarter. So there's things that we can do on both fronts, but I think this is a conversation I'd be happy to help kind of facilitate, make sure it happens between the COPL and PCCEP.
Thank you very much. And I really appreciate helping get me out of the cloggy fog that I'm in, still trying to wrap my head around. So thank you again.
Great, thank you so much. We'll move on, and Celeste, or Co-Chair Celeste had her hand up, and she said she had another topic that she wanted to discuss, and then we'll go to Jared and Barb. Go ahead, Celeste. Co-Chair Celeste.
Yes, thanks. One of the biggest concerns that I'm starting to hear more and more about, and most of us here on PCCEP, I think at one time or another, have expressed this, is to help the public recognize how and where some of the obstacles come from with regard to our relationships with the police. And most recently, I believe it was at our last meeting, and it was very apparent at the last status hearing. We need to pay attention to the role of the police union in regards to how well our recommendations and how smoothly and productive our relationship with the Portland Police Bureau is going to be. I'm trying to be diplomatic and not use overly pointed language, but let me just say the union is many times the source of our concerns, in that we didn't have the body-worn cameras implemented in a timely fashion. That was not necessarily the city or the police bureau. That was primarily the union. And I think we need to be really precise and clear in looking at how the union affects our ability to work with the police bureau. And I would like to bring that forward as well as an issue for the status. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Celeste, for that add and bringing that back from those previous meetings. Next, we'll go with Jared.
Thank you. I wanted to speak to the issue of PCEP being required to host COCO town halls and just, underscore what I think the takeaway was from the discussion that that is not a requirement. I'm not sure who has said it was a requirement, at least of the settlement agreement. The Department of Justice hasn't taken that to be a requirement. The history of the COCO, if we go back to 2018, 2017, they did not. They had their own town hall events that they hosted and had on their own day of the week. And, it was publicized with assistance from the COAB or the PCEP, an email maybe went out to the listserv. But I also just, on a broader scale, the Department of Justice hasn't taken any position that the settlement agreement binds PCEP members. I mean, the city has obligations to support, to give you adequate membership, to facilitate you, doing the work that you do under the PCEP plan. But the obligations, I don't want any of these volunteer members here thinking that the Department of Justice is trying to force you into doing certain things. That is not the case. And so the requirement to consult is, I think, a soft requirement, is more an obligation that runs to the city and their contractor, the COCO, so that you guys can hopefully go forward and find a way that works best. I did appreciate Sarah's pulling out the key concern there, which is just making those town hall meetings more effective and more meaningful to public engagement. So I thank you
Well, I
for
wanna
all the
apologize.
conversations so far.
Thank you, Jared, for clarifying that. And I apologize for adding confusion to it because I just said that we were obligated. So thank you for clearing that up for us. I do want to ask you though to help us, make sure that we stay on track with utilizing that time properly, because we look to you for a measure of leadership and guidance in that.
Happy to do that, Celeste. We're preparing a compliance report that we hope to file on the 31st of July. And if if the PCEP wants us to present our findings, we're happy to do so. If you don't, we're happy to present it to court. As far as, trying to help, be a part of the consultation with you and the COCO 2.0, the next COCO, Dr. Christoph and Amy Ruiz and the bunch. Happy to help facilitate that. I found in my dealings with them that they're all very reasonable people and will, want to do what's most effective from your perspective and the community's perspective. I share some of the concern of, every quarter having those meetings. Maybe it doesn't seem like you're getting the same sort of bang for the buck or for the hour that you're contributing. But yeah, I think that's a good conversation to have. And Sarah has offered to lead that. I'm happy to participate if wanted. But again, I see that as a city COCO, PCEP consultation. I'm happy to be a part of it if you think that would be helpful.
Thank you, Jared. Next we have Nathan. Go ahead, Nathan.
Thank you. I've got a few additional items that I think we should consider talking about. I think the primary one, to think about is the city is moving towards enforcing a daytime camping ban and I know the mayor was proposing or considering proposing rules on fentanyl use in public, and there's some new state laws going into effect at some point. And both of those issues, I think, are cases where we've got, a situation we're trying to solve through policing, but we don't have the backing resources to support. In the case of public drug use, there is, as widely reported, just not enough detox beds or sobering beds, among other, the whole system just does not have the resources to support people, even who already want to stop using or already want to stop experiencing houselessness. And so, when we think about the risk to populations experiencing mental illness, but also just the risk of use of force in general. I'm concerned that the city isn't moving forward with a clear plan to make sure that the public safety benefits are worth the costs that they could potentially have. There's a lot of vagueness in the plans. So I think that's something PCCEP should engage in one way or another. With regards to the union or the PPA, I think I do want to caution PCCEP a little bit in terms of being too adversarial with the union, mostly because the union has labor rights under Oregon state law, and whether we like their influence or not, we can't really do anything about it. And so given that, I think I'd actually like to see PCCEP maybe take a more proactively collaborative approach with the union and find areas of common interest and overlap where we can, and try to preserve that relationship. I don't want to see us get into a situation where the union or the association, is reflexively in opposition to PCCEP, because I don't think that's going to be a healthy dynamic. And so, yeah, so maybe it's time to start inviting them to our meetings on a regular basis rather than, just talking about them. And then the final thing I wanted to point out, and this is just a sort of low profile thing, but in the past, PCCEP has recommended that the city stop encouraging private security in the enhanced services districts. And the Oregonian reported recently that the Central East Side Industrial District no longer has private security patrolling, not as like an intentional choice. They just had a contract issue that they couldn't make work, or some sort of cost issue. But given that Central East Side does not have private security patrolling, I live in Central East Side, and things, if anything, are better than they have been. Not necessarily because of that, but just in general. We may want to consider asking the city to, thanking the city for, ultimately following a recommendation, and consider, pushing for more change in that direction. I think that covered it.
Great, thank you, Nathan. We next have Dr. Rochelle Silver, and after Dr. Rochelle Silver's comments, we're going to take a quick break. Go ahead, Dr. Rochelle.
Hi, my name is Rochelle Silver. I'm a member of the Mental Health Alliance and a former member of COAB and the Citizen Review Committee. One of the issues I'd like to bring up, I don't know if what the members of the PCCEP are thinking about the incident that happened at Good Samaritan Hospital the other day, where unfortunately a security guard was killed. The issue that I would like to bring up to you, however, is related to what happened to the shooter of that security officer. There were 3 jurisdictions working to, I'll use the word capture that person. They were the Portland Police, the Gresham Police, and the Multnomah County Sheriff. Only the Portland Police shot and killed that person. The person was mentally ill, was in the middle of a mental crisis. And this is where this settlement agreement originally started, that the Portland Police were found to have a pattern of practice of using excessive force with the mentally ill or perceived mentally ill. And it seems like their primary MO is still to shoot and kill. That's an issue for me. I hope it's an issue for you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Dr. Rochelle Silver. We'll go into a break now, a 10-minute break, and we'll be back in 10 minutes. Thank you so much.
Recording stopped.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. I think it's been about 10 minutes. Okay, so I think we can start back up by seeing if there were any last comments about the discussion we were having about the status conference, ongoing concerns, or things you want PCCEP to reflect in our report to the court. Okay, not seeing much there. So I will ask if either of our oh, Nathan, go ahead.
Sorry, one more thing. I keep thinking things. There was recently a story out of, PPB doing some human trafficking enforcement on, I believe it was 82nd. And I heard a range of community reaction to that. Some very thankful, some concerned about the use of the human trafficking label for things that, may or may not just be sex work. I don't have any strong opinions on it, and this may not be for the status conference necessarily, but I think PCCEP should consider looking into that and maybe asking for some clarity into what, the contours of that work actually are.
Thank you, Nathan. If I'll give a second here to allow others to raise their hand if they want to share some additional thoughts or some new thoughts. And then I'll turn it over to Afrida so she can go to the next part of our agenda. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Afrida.
Thanks, Teresa. Next, we're going to move to open comments.
Oh, we are not.
Oh, we are not moving to open comment.
Yeah.
Thank you. Recommendation to create contact survey program draft review. That's really good. Thank you.
Yeah, so we anticipated that we might have a little extra meeting time tonight, and those of you who have been following along, and as Nathan alluded to in this meeting, you may know that PCCEP's been discussing this possibility for a while to write a recommendation to advance a contact survey program for PPB. So some of our PCCEP members or a PCCEP member has come up with a draft for that recommendation, and so we figured we would kick that off by taking a look at that draft this evening. So Nathan is leading this. Nathan, would you like to share screen, or would you like us to?
I would like you to. I'm not prepared to share.
Okay, let me pull that up just a second here. All right, here we are. And so I will hand it over to Nathan to sort of lead us through this.
Yeah, so I sort of drafted this recommendation, and I guess just for context, I had worked through TAC with the TAC members on a recommendation for contact surveys. That's the Training Advisory Council. There's a very specific focus on training and on the utility of contact surveys and improving training. But I think, contact surveys as a tool to assess, well, there's a few benefits, obviously, when you have an interaction with a PPB member, I think it makes sense for the Bureau or the city to be collecting information about that, both because we want the information, but also because I think at a sort of basic level, it demonstrates that the city cares about the quality of that interaction. I go to the movie theater, I buy something online, all sorts of interactions in my daily life, I get, good organizations care about the perception of the service quality that they're giving. And I think, there's that aspect to it. Sorry, I wasn't super prepared for this, so I'm getting off track. I guess I'll just rewind and say, TAC brought its perspective on the resolution that it passed. I think PCCEP has a very different perspective and a different set of emphasis and a different voice that I tried to express through this very rough draft. In particular, I've noticed over the last, well, for a very long time, actually, there have been concerns about bias. There have been concerns about, people being treated differently, based on their race in particular. And I think context surveys are potentially a really good way to zoom in on that and figure out why some of the disparities that are persisted are happening. If you scroll down a little bit, there are certain aspects of our recommendation process that I think would really benefit from things like town halls. In particular, I think it would be really helpful. I think PCCEP could really make a strong contribution by engaging, and this is the comment here, engaging the public through a town hall process to figure out what a context survey program should look like, and how that can best serve the community and be done in a really equitable way. I know at our annual report review meeting a couple months ago, there was a discussion of context surveys, and it seems like PCCEP members are interested. And before I stop talking, I do just want to mention that this was written as this was initially just a rough draft to kickstart the conversation. So there are some, assertions and things that I, would want to go through and make sure that we can back up and fact check and be rigorous about, because there are strong claims that we want to be diligent about making sure are truly accurate. And again, this is just a rough draft, and I would not want to move forward without a lot of engagement from PCCEP members and crafting this to meet the needs of our group. With that, I will mute myself.
All right. Thank you, Nathan. If we could scroll down a little bit on this so we can see the initial blurb, so people can be able to view, scroll up. Yeah, the body of recommendation. Could you center that piece? Wonderful. So as per Nathan's request, if we could take a look at this and add PCCEP members add any comments or questions to look this through, as it is a rough draft.
Would it be helpful if we read it out loud?
If folks find that help, I don't mind reading it at all.
Let's do that.
Okay. Summary of recommendation. PCCEP recommends that the Community Safety Division designs and implement a contact survey program to systematically measure perception of police encounters. Body of recommendation. Portlanders demand a police bureau that minimizes use of force, effectively de-escalates situation, and treats everyone with respect and dignity, regardless of race, sexual orientation, gender expression, or mental health status. PPB currently trains officers on de-escalation and procedural justice, shocking racial disparities and stops in use of force persist. Without feedback from members of the public, the City of Portland does not have the information it needs to understand the source of the problem, identify officers who need early intervention to improve outcomes, or evaluate the effectiveness of existing procedural justice and de-escalation training. Customer feedback surveys are commonly used by organizations that care about the quality of service they provide. We call on the City of Portland to prioritize the quality of service provided by PPB's officers and take a data-driven approach that prioritizes the direct lived experiences of Portlanders. PCCEP recommends that the City of Portland implement a survey program that gives Portlanders who interact with the police an opportunity to easily share their feedback, both positive and negative. Further, we recommend that the data collected by this program be shared with the Portland Police Bureau and used to develop improved training, policies and training. We scroll down to the next question. How does this recommendation redress barriers to racial equity? PCCEP is not satisfied with the City of Portland's excuses for ongoing racial disparities in stops and use of force outcomes. We demand that the City of Portland take urgent action to identify the true causes of disparate outcomes. PPB claims that racial disparities are not caused by race-driven policing and expression of officer bias. This is not supported by evidence because there is none. The City of Portland needs to listen to BIPOC Portlanders who interact with PPB members and use an analytical approach to eliminating bias policing or proving that it isn't happening. A contact survey program will enable the City of Police to understand the performance of PPB officers as experienced by subjects and victims. By doing so, racial disparities in the application of procedural justice will be made clear. You can scroll down to the next question. Thank you. How does this recommendation improve outcomes for persons with mental illness? Data show that police are still using force on subjects experiencing mental illness. PPB's performance in reducing use of force varies from quarter to quarter, with no clear explanation given. We believe this is because the Police Bureau does not know or understand the root causes, and without this understanding, cannot build on success or recognize failures. A contact survey program will identify the extent to which procedural justice and de-escalation training are being applied. More importantly, contact surveys are the best way to measure how these techniques are perceived by subjects and victims with mental illness. Thank you. Subjects and victims with mental illness deserve to have their voices heard, and a contact survey program will ensure that every Portlander has equal opportunity to share their story.
And I think we can call it there because the next portion is purely hypothetical. So
All right.
read it. Okay. So again, this is a rough draft, but we just wanted to bring it forth tonight to get any initial comments as PCCEP continues to work on this offline together. We want to involve the public in our process. Yeah, do we have any initial comments or suggestions for PCCEP as we work on this?
Yes, Barb.
Barb?
Yeah, Barb, we see you. You can go ahead and speak.
Sorry, you
Okay,
guys, technology issues, my bad.
there we go.
My phone fell asleep. I was gonna say, Nathan, I think this is great. This is like the most forceful I've seen you write something. And so I think that that is really, really cool. I like that you're talking about not just a contact survey, but a contact survey program. And I'm wondering if there's any point in referencing, in looking at tax recommendations and making any kind of statement about if PCEP agrees with them. And then there was a second, the COCO's technical report. I don't know if you guys want to mention that, just as things to tie everything together. It's their thoughts, they're not recommendations even.
Thank you, Barb. In addition to Barb's comment, yep, I see you, Nathan. I'm going to read Tia's comment asking that we can use people instead of subjects, or just what our language around people in the mental health section. So go ahead, Nathan, and then Byron.
So I was just raising my hand to call out Tia's comments.
Oh, okay. All right, Byron.
Thank you, Frida. Nathan, is this something that would need any type of resources to keep this going to be implemented? Time and people, and if it is this something that needs to be also added with the recommendation, and it's something that could be ongoing from here on? So there's never no maybe there's a question cutting this out of the budget because we don't have the money to do this, or is that something that's rightfully something that we can rightfully ask about?
Yeah, I think, the details of how much it would cost are sort of, I don't know the details of that, and I think it really depend on how the city goes about doing it. What I can say is I know there's a thriving market of, technology vendors and things and just products and services available for the city to, just pay for someone to do this for us if we wanted to. I think there would be some cost in maintaining that system, on an ongoing basis. And I think if we wanted to get the most out of it, we probably want, city staff to be analyzing that data on a regular basis. In the past, when groups have recommended this, the city has said, or city leadership have said that it would ultimately require a budget item from city council, or for them to approve it in the budget. I don't think this is like $1 million project. I think it's much smaller than that. But I can't speak to specifics. And I think you raise a really good point. Like, we should be asking for this to be a routine, ongoing thing. The city of Portland has done surveys and things in the past, but it's not really useful to do it once. You really want to track it over time in a consistent way.
Thanks, Nathan. Tia.
I was just reading along and was wondering about using people instead of subjects and victims in the mental health section. But I know this is a draft, and I don't know if that's something you've already considered. But I do want to also say I'm super excited about bringing forth the contact surveys that started with COCO's recommendation. And then I'm wondering if the recommendation goes forward, then would we work with the city on how to do it? Because we've talked about some of the difficulties of people being able to do a survey online, or how would they do it? That might take some time.
Nathan, do you want to respond to any of that? I know you wanted to just second Tia's comment, but I didn't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, so in terms of the language of the draft, again, it was a rough draft written in one go, just as a starting point for the conversation, and I fully welcome changes. I did make a note of that language change, and I'll make sure it's incorporated. You know, if you want me to update the draft, otherwise, I don't know how we want to go about the drafting process. And then in terms of you know, how PCCEP is engaged in and implementing the program, I think that's totally up for us to decide and recommend and add to the recommendation. You know, the other thing I would say is the last part of that draft suggests that we have town halls, and I think it would be really helpful to have community feedback, especially from perspectives that I don't share and I can't anticipate when I was writing it, especially, you know, people with disabilities, people with mental illness. I just can't speak for those perspectives, and I really want to make sure we're considering that.
Right. Okay, good. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you both, Tia and Nathan. Barb.
Can't hear you, but I know you called my name.
I did.
I'm not sure what's up. I know everybody in this room, in this world, doesn't agree, and I'm only one person with a mental health diagnosis, but I cringe every time I see just mental illness mentioned, as opposed to things like mental health crisis, mental health diagnosis, mental health challenges, things that are more of a said in more of a positive way than just illness. But I am one person, and I am just saying my feelings about it, and I'm not trying to start a huge ruckus. I just want to go on record.
Yeah, thank you, Barb. It seems like that's definitely something on Nathan's radar to make sure that that language that's utilized in there is edited to be more affirming and inclusive and thoughtful. Any further comments on this draft?
I guess one more thing real quick is I hope that if you guys do the town halls or a town hall, that you make information available to the public ahead of time, like what your recommendation is likely to look like that you want comments on, instead of springing things on people with just 24 or 48 hours or less to look at them. And I don't know if you guys have a way to do, you know how the COCO report comes out and it says draft across it? I don't know if that's easy or hard to do, but that would be a way to like sort of keep things clear, I guess, is a
Appreciate that suggestion, Barb. All right. Any additional comments on this draft? All right, Dory, pass it to Teresa for, there we go. Go ahead, Teresa.
Thank you so much. We're going to be opening it up to open public comment. And just to review our expectations, do you have any comments beyond what was said on today's agenda? What would you like to see PCCEP work on next, and anything else? You can touch on any of these areas of focus in your comments and raise your hand if you want, if you have some thoughts. I see Barb's hand up. Go ahead, Barb. Or excuse me, Barbara.
Thank you. I really appreciated at the beginning when you put up the slides and you left them there for a while. And so I got to read them thoroughly at the very beginning. There were like 4 in a row in one case. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Those are really good comments. It helps us facilitate better. Other thoughts, comments, suggestions? Barb, go ahead.
So I'm just gonna go because I don't see anybody else's hand, but there is something in the chat. I am a little concerned that there wasn't more discussion about the first, well, the first big agenda topic about having a public forum and a recommendation.
Thank
Put it
you.
off to the side. The meeting. So I'm just a little disappointed about that.
I didn't hear nothing she just said.
Byron, did you say that you couldn't hear what she said?
Yeah, I missed a
Yeah,
lot of what she said.
Barb was breaking, Barb, you were breaking up quite a bit.
Do you mind, Barb, repeating what you said so that folks can hear you?
Yeah, am I breaking up less?
Yes, less.
Okay, I moved the phone. So what I said was I was surprised at how fast the main first agenda item was breezed through the discussion about doing a getting public input on PSR. And I think Portland Street response is important enough that it would have been nice to have more of a discussion about the event. And I feel like it was just sort of pushed off to discuss offline. And I think what you guys are doing is really great. Okay, Dory, sorry. Wait. I said feel. You can't change my feelings.
I just want to clarify about something you said, which is that that discussion won't be offline. So I'll chime in after you're done.
Okay. You and I are the same where we'll shake our heads or not. But yeah, I had expected there to be more discussion about that tonight. But I think you guys are doing well and, you know, working well together and doing a lot of good things. So I'm not trying to be like Debbie Downer. I just naturally come off that way. Okay, clarify for me, Dory.
Yeah, sorry if there was any confusion about the update we provided earlier. So that was not the time to be like, okay, like this is what we're doing and that's it. Like that was sort of just like a preview of like these are the next steps. And like each of those next steps will like likely be planned in subcommittee meetings. Like for example, if PCCEP is able to schedule a meeting with Commissioner Gonzalez, that would be an entire meeting. Planning, drafting and approving a recommendation would be at least an entire meeting. Planning the details of a community engagement event around that work would be a subcommittee meeting, which is generally the process we observe for all of those kinds of things. So the intention was sort of just to loop in the public on like what our process will be moving forward with this engagement. Not to say like that's all been done. Thanks for, you know, thanks for following along. It's just like a preview of it.
Okay, cool beans. I'm going to cut back in only because you guys said I was cutting out and the other part of what I said was that I hoped you guys have anything that you want the public to be educated about, including a recommendation available to the public, to us, more than like 48 hours ahead of time, if at all possible. And then the last thing I think I said is like the COCO report has that, I don't know if you call it a watermark that says draft on every page when the draft comes out. I don't know if that's easy or hard to do, but that might be a way for you guys to be more comfortable putting something out there that isn't the final product for sure, so that it's not mistaken for the final project. Whatever word I want. Sorry, guys.
Thank you, Barb. Dory, did you want to respond to any?
Not a response to that. I did put my hand up because of a question in the chat. I see Cox has a question. I don't know if they would like to ask it in this forum, so people watching the recording will have context, but I'm also happy to read their question.
Cox, did you want to repeat your question verbally and maybe expand?
Sure. I was just wondering, because right now I have two screens. One is the PAC community meeting and this one. And I was wondering, I know the difference between one has the 20 city council commissioner chosen representatives, but like what type of work would be similar, different? And are you going to be making recommendations to that body? How are you working together or not? Could you speak more to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure this got answered because I think the confusion between these groups and even other groups comes up pretty often, which makes perfect sense. We have somewhat similar names, and also there are quite a lot of advisory bodies that work on issues related to policing in this city. So the Police Accountability Commission, the PAC, they are working on something pretty distinct, which is a time-limited project where they are working out the details of the future police accountability system in Portland. That was a ballot measure from 2020. And so their work will actually conclude in August, next month, August 2023. And so then like in a couple of years or a year or so, the city will transition over to that new system based on the code package that commission has developed. It's most similar to, like, if you're familiar with the Charter Commission that developed the new charter that the city is now working on implementing. That's kind of what they're working on. So they don't actually do anything related to like current events and policing. They are singularly focused on working out the details of this new administrative city system, which I know is complicated to try to digest. PCCEP is a remedy created by the settlement agreement between the Department of Justice and the city. And we work more in the areas of both emerging concerns related to policing in Portland, but also the ongoing issues related to the settlement agreement concerns, which are use of force against people with mental illness. So two pretty different projects. The main overlap is that we do both work on issues related to PPB. And I know that's a lot of words, but I hope that kind of starts to clear things up, and I'm happy to talk more about that anytime if that's helpful.
That was very thorough. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dory. Thank you, Barb. We'll go next to Byron.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify on Barb's saying about us not speaking on the PSR, the community engagement committee we had last week with Chief Gillespie was a lot of information that we all need to have, and was a lot of the community input on what they thought was needed to keep PSR around. So I just wanted to say on record that we didn't gloss over it. Just the last meeting we had that was pretty much the whole meeting. So that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Byron. Any other comments, questions? All right, thank you. Seeing none, I'll send it back to Afrida.
All right. So what's next? We have a couple of items that we have on the agenda. There's one listed here, but there's two more that we talked about earlier we want to bring up. So this first one here is the PCCEP Settlement and Policy Subcommittee meeting that's on August 2nd, next Wednesday. Then the following Monday on, I believe it is August 14th, is the status. I'm reading the agenda here, sorry.
The status conference meeting, Afrida?
Yep, thank you.
Yeah.
The status conference meeting. I apologize, I had that agenda right there and now it has disappeared.
And then the last one is on 8/6.
Yep, and that's the PCCEP full committee meeting with the mayor, Mayor Ted Wheeler. And lastly, I just want to say thank you to PCCEP members of the public, and accessibility support, interpretation, captioning for your contributions today. You can learn more about PCCEP at its website at portland.gov/PCCEP. Community members can give written public comment in advance of future PCCEP meetings on that following link. And then please sign up for email updates on PCCEP's updates page. Oh, last announcement, PCCEP, remember, is looking for new members. So don't forget to go to look up the description, read through it, and if it makes sense or you know someone who would be a good fit, please have them go ahead and apply. All right. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you all. Thank you so much for coming tonight. And please reach out with any questions if you are interested in applying or know someone who is. I'm happy to chat about it. Thank you.
Good.
Recording stopped.